Welcome to Miracles in the Madness, where faith meets the chaos. I'm your host, Ashton Kever, and together we'll explore stories, biblical truth, and encouragement for women living in the beautiful, messy life God has called them to. Each week, we'll dive into real-life testimonies, practical encouragement, and biblical insights to help you walk faithfully through the everyday madness. Ready to get started? Let's go. Before this episode kicks off, I wanted to remind you that Miracles in the Madness is up for a Women Podcaster of the Year award. Winning an award of any kind for a podcast is a really great way to get your podcast in front of new audiences and more people who could be impacted by your work. My goal with this podcast is to reach more women for God so that He can start to grow and change in their hearts the way He has for me in my parenting journey. I would not want to do this without God, and I don't want you to either. So whether you've been listening since the beginning, whether you know me personally, or if you have just found this podcast by who knows what means, I ask that you would consider voting for Miracles in the Madness in the lifestyle category of the Women Podcaster of the Year Awards. I'm going to link it in the show notes, and it would mean the world to me if you gave us your vote. Welcome back to Miracles in the Madness. I'm your host, Ashton Kever, and today I want to talk to you a little bit about exhaustion in parenting. Yeah, we're going to talk about it. And I'm talking to you from the place of someone who is exhausted. It's really easy to fall into that place. And I think what I'm learning is that exhaustion is almost more of a mindset than it is an actual state of being. And so today, that's what I want to talk about. And I just want you to know that I'm talking to you coming from a place of feeling the exhaustion. So we're going to walk and talk through this together, and maybe together we will learn something and grow through this. So before we get too far into this episode, I think I just want to pray us in. So, dear Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for today. We thank you for this opportunity to talk about you and talk about the ways that you're moving in our life, God. And I pray that the person listening to this could feel seen, feel heard, and known in this episode where you're inspiring me to share what I feel and what I'm going through right now. So God, I pray that you would give me the direction and the conversation, and just allow this to be a safe and vulnerable space for those listening and for me. It's in Jesus' holy name I pray. Amen. So let me just walk you into my week, right? We are coming off of a holiday, and at the time of this recording, we're coming off of a holiday. We are trying to get back into the rhythm of things. And something about this holiday season was different than the ones that we've had in the past. And I think some of it was that my son is in kindergarten now. And so being in kindergarten, he is more in that school rhythm, right? Where he's going to school on a regular basis in the 8 to 3 or whatever time frame, big school, right? It's not about when we pick him up. It's like, this is when he is required to be there. And so, I don't know about you, but my kindergartner comes home from school very exhausted. And something else that I learned is that they are learning way, way more than we ever learned in kindergarten. Our kindergarten was essentially modern day preschool. I'm pretty sure I learned how to write my name in kindergarten. I learned my letters in kindergarten. Most of the time I remember, I don't remember a time in kindergarten where we didn't take a nap. It was very different than it is now. My son is bringing home homework that we did when I was in first and second grade. I don't remember doing, actual addition and subtraction tables until I was in second grade. And maybe it did come before that, but in first grade, I remember one of our big projects was we literally counted beans. And we had to count to 100 and like use tally marks and write our numbers and things like that. And that was how we learned. Not only we learned to count to 10, but then we also learned to count in sets of tens and what came after 20 and all of our numbers, right? He's already doing addition tables, and I'm having to do flashcards with him on it. He's already starting to read, and I don't remember learning more than my letters. I didn't remember learning to actually read until maybe the latter half of first grade, more like second grade. And so the pressure is so high on these kids. And the pressure then gets transferred to us parents, right? We end up having to do so much more and be so much more engaged than I think our parents ever had to be, because we're learning and teaching at such a rapid pace. I'm not saying they're not necessarily ready for it. Each kid is different. But it does require so much more focus of them. And so my kindergartner is like the word exhausted is the only description I can think of when he comes home from school every single day. Well, he was on his break back to what I was talking about initially though. He was on his break from school over the winter holiday. And we spent a ton of quality time as a family together during that time. We probably had a movie night every night. We just did fun things like made hot chocolate or played games together. We built puzzles. We just were really spending time together in a really relaxed way. And that was what was so different about this Christmas season for us, is that it was calm, more calm than it has been in the past. And I'm not really sure why that is, but I think maybe some of it was a choice for us, given that we've been in some weird circumstances lately. But as we try to get back into this rhythm of real life, right, we have just felt like we can't figure it out. And I don't know if it's can't or if we don't want to, because the difference in our holiday really was good for our mental health and good for our bodies. And, I released the Word of the Year guide. And, my word of the year is perseverance. So while I may be feeling a little run down right now, with that in the back of my mind, it does keep me going. But my husband's word of the year is quiet. And that word has been also bouncing around in my mind as I think about all that we've been doing. And in the last couple weeks, as we've come out of Christmas and come out of New Year's, and we're trying to get back into this routine. Last week my husband and I felt like we're strangers passing in the night. And this week, it sort of feels the same. Every single night, we have something going on. Every single night. And, when I talk to other people about this, they always say, oh, you just wait. Wait till your kids get all involved in sports or activities, and wait till this and wait till that. And I'm sort of tired of hearing that. And it's not because I'm mad at those people or that they're wrong. I'm tired of hearing it because I don't think it's the way we were intended to live. I want my children to have experiences in sports and be on teams and play games with their friends, but I don't want them to think that that is real life. I don't want them to think that that is how we should live our lives, fully immersed in so many things that when we finally reach a point that we can't keep going, we fall down in exhaustion. Why is that what we're teaching our children? Why is that the way we are living our lives? I believe it's not God. I don't think God set the world up so that people should be hustling and bustling all the time. In fact, even God Himself took a day of rest. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't work, because that's also not biblical. That was part of what He said when he put Adam on the planet and created him, was that he would work the fields and that he would take care of God's creation. And so I still believe fully that we are, as human beings, it's part of our nature to work. If we are made in the image of God, if we are made after God's own heart, right? Like David was a man of God's own heart. I don't know that we're all that lucky. But what I'm saying is, if we are like our Father in heaven, if He has created us to be like Him, okay, to beat a dead horse to death and say that a million times, if we were created to be like Him, that doesn't mean we don't work. I think God is up there in heaven busting His butt all day. I mean, as I've been reading my Bible, I started reading the Bible recap again this year with a few of my friends, and I've really been enjoying. I'm going to take a pause real quick from what I'm talking about, and I'll come back to it. But ADHD moment, I just have to tell you, I have really been enjoying going through the Bible recap again and doing it with friends in the YouVersion Bible app. I will gladly link anything in there that I can for this, because I really encourage you to participate in it as well. And the reason I've enjoyed it so much is because every person will pull different insights from each thing that you read. And the Bible recap goes through from a chronological reading plan perspective. And so we actually just finished Job. And Job, I mean, half of what God speaks in Job, or what people say about God in Job, is talking about how God handles His creation. God leads the mother bear and her cubs to food. God tells the birds where to build their nest, or the eagles where to build their nest. It talks about how He directs the snow to fall on the earth and tells the rain to pour down. God sends He loads the clouds with moisture and they flash with His lightning. That's just one of his friends talking about God, Job's friends. And then there's a moment in here where I believe it's God talking about how He created the horse, and how that horse was created to be all of these certain ways, like so that it could handle being in battle and war. And it's just incredible to hear God talk about His creation, and people even if it isn't God talking, but it's people talking about the majesty of God's creation and how detailed everything about it is, right? Like, God handles all of this every day. He's not only got a plan for us, He has a plan for every animal born on this planet. Not only does He have a grand design and plan for the lives that we lead here, of every single day of what we are doing and how we're living our lives, and His plan is to bring us near Him, right? However that may be. His plan for us could impact millions, or it could impact people closer to us. We will never know, probably on this side of heaven. My point being that while we as the human race are important, God's creation is important too. He's telling the sun when to shine so that the plants get enough light. It's every single thing that happens on this planet happens because of God. So when I think about the ways that we are exhausted, the ways that we feel like we're hustling and bustling and running around, I can't imagine for one day trying to even think about all of the things that God does in one day. So it's crazy to me that there are times that I believe that I need to be completely in control of everything. Like, that's absolutely ludicrous, and one of the things that leads me to full exhaustion. But all of that to the side, this God who takes so much time and intricately manages the entire earth took a day to rest. And I bet he still takes a day to rest, because that's the example that he has set forth for us. And I don't believe that we were created to rush and run all the time. I think that the world, the enemy, has created this narrative for us here on his throne. If he's the king of the world, right? Like, God's still in control of all of it. But if his area to reign is earth and trying to pull all of us away from God, wouldn't that be such an easy way to do it? I had a friend once tell me that if the devil can't make you bad, he'll make you busy. And the thing about that is, it's absolutely true, because if we're busy, we're distracted from the things that are important. And I think over my family's holiday, we figured out, or we got reacquainted with the idea that all of the things that have been bothering us, all of these hard things that we've been going through, this troubling season that we have found ourselves in, it's not that, like, it's serious, sure, but it's not that serious. And what I mean by that is, it's not the end all be all. The world's going to keep going if we realign our focus with the things that are important. And something I have had time to think about and have come to terms with as a parent is that God may have plenty of ministries for me in my life. Part of my ministry is probably what I'm doing right now, ministering to other moms who maybe have felt or are feeling the way that I feel. Exhausted, overwhelmed, busy, right? Do you ever feel like you can't be enough? Do you ever feel like if you fell off the face of the planet, that would everything continue to run without you? I'm not certain about that. Maybe you're a little bit of a control freak like me. I don't know. I like to be in charge. I've been a leader since I can even cite times when I was a baby or a child where my mom already she could see the leadership in me. And that's a nice way to put it. Most people just told me I was bossy when I was a kid. But my point is, if you are in any way like me, being busy, feeling like you have purpose in multiple areas of your life, those things give the false impression that you are succeeding. But as a mom, one of the number one places I am called to minister is to my children. Probably the first real disciples that I will make if I'm parenting well and doing it right should be and will be my children. So for me to get caught up in all these other little things is doing my main core ministry right now a disservice. My one thing that I'm supposed to be focused on right at this moment, I put it on the back burner for often many other things because it's really easy to get distracted in this busy world. So are we exhausted? Yeah, maybe in a literal sense. But we can fix that, right? That physical exhaustion stems from never resting. You feel like you never can get a full deep breath? It's because you're not taking a break, sis. You can't take a full deep breath because if you stopped that long, you would think that the world's going to collapse without you. And I don't want to hurt your feelings because I'm going to hurt mine. But I dare you to take a day off and not think about any of those things that consume your mind. I dare you to lay it all down just for a day. The only thing you're allowed to pick up maybe is your Bible, prayer. Sit around and watch TV or something. Don't clean your house for a day. Don't go run errands. Don't get groceries. Literally sit around your house with your children. Lay everything else down. And I guarantee you the very next day when you pick it all back up again, it's all going to still be there waiting for you. The difference will be that you have taken a breath. That was for me just as much as it was for you. And that's the physical exhaustion piece. Something I've been really tossing around, and I don't know, maybe you have too. We're coming into spring sports season. And I talked to my son about doing soccer again this spring, and he kind of sounded like he didn't want to. And my natural instinct was, we're going to do it anyway. And I don't really know that I've made a decision. My point is, what if we just didn't? What if we didn't add a sport for the spring? Okay, fine. He doesn't want to do a sport. I don't have to go find one for him. My daughter really likes to dance. She's showing like she wants to be in gymnastics. I don't have to go find that sport for her. There's a part of me that feels guilty for not doing it. I want to because I love her. But I also have to be responsible with my finances and be a good steward of the things that God's given me. There's so many things to consider. And for me, personally, for me, this leads to that mental exhaustion. I am the queen of mulling over the fine details, okay? I can sit and consider how to decide how to go, which direction to go on any one given decision for an exorbitant amount of time. This is actually not something I'm proud of. I am a classic overthinker, and it has caused me in many areas of my life to get analysis paralysis, where I just don't do anything. And it's easy in those times to say, well, I'm just wandering in the wilderness, if we want to use the cliches of Christianity, right? I'm wandering in the wilderness. I'm waiting on the Lord. Well, the Lord didn't call us to know that someday rain was coming and not to plant a field. But that's what I'm doing when I sit around and don't do anything. It's like staring at the ground and saying, well, if God wants it to grow, it's going to grow. What's going to grow? What's going to grow? I didn't plant anything. And I'm fully a believer that God, if I didn't plant a thing and he wanted something to grow, yes, it could grow because God is a big God and he can do whatever he wants. But I think that we're not called to that. We're called to faithfully take action. So when I get overanalyzing everything and I take no action, could that just be me getting caught up in the world again? I'm getting exhausted, but is it exhausted for the right reasons? I don't think so. When I think about this, I'm thinking about how I think God would prefer me to pray about it and take the next right step, whatever that looks like. Even if the next right step is, I'm going to pray about this one more day, because at least praying about it is something. But I think more than that, I think at some point it's the just making a decision, right? And so over the last year and a half or so, I have really been trying to push myself a little bit more into just making a decision. And there's something that they talk about at work a lot in the operational excellence space. A guy I used to work with regularly said, do, learn, do, which means you just, at some point, you just have to make a decision, do it, look at it. How did it go? Let's learn from it. And then let's fix it so we can do it again and restart the process, right? And so I find myself regularly sitting in a state of mental exhaustion because I simply overanalyze and overthink even the smallest decisions. And so those decisions, sometimes they just don't get made. And that's worse than anything, in my opinion, because I've spent so much time thinking about it, and there I go, just not making even one decision. It took me over a year of considering doing my own podcast before I actually did it. I had the equipment for 9 months before I chose to actually pick it up and use it. You want to talk about analysis paralysis? There it is. God couldn't have given me a clearer sign that a podcast was what he needed me to be doing. He could not have been clearer, because on a list of probably 25 different things that I sent out to the family and friends who asked me for a list, only one of those was podcast equipment, and I was pretty confident it wasn't going to happen because it was pretty random, and there were plenty of other things on there that were cheaper, easier, and made a little bit more sense, right? But of all of those things, my mom got me podcasting equipment. And when I asked her why, she was like, I don't know, it was on your list. But of 25 other things, my mom loves to buy me clothes and coffee, like gift cards to places that I like. Those are the things my mom typically gets for me. Occasionally, she'll get me something a little bit different, but usually that's the area that we live in. A book, because I love to read. Art stuff, because both my mom and I share that creative, artistic sort of gene, right? But podcasting equipment is so random, but my mom got it, and I believe God helped her discern that decision, whether she knows it or not, because this is something that he had planned for me. But it took me a year and a half to finally decide that it was worth listening to that still small voice, right? And I get frustrated with myself because it's so easy to fall into the trap of, what if I had done it sooner? Or I wish I had done it sooner. It doesn't do me any good to think about that now. And it frankly just adds to the mental exhaustion. It just clouds up my mental space. Another fun part of mental exhaustion, if you're kind of like I am, you have a mental weight that you carry around with you. In your head, you keep every date that is coming up that you need to remember for your family, like a dentist appointment or when the trash needs to come out. You have a list of things in your head that you've got to get done today, like pay the bills that came in, or where did you put those bills? Did you hang them up on the wall where they go, or did you check the mail today? Like, the mental weight of those things can be really heavy. There's a whole documentary about it. I don't remember the name of it. If I think of it, I'll drop it in the show notes. But my therapist had recommended my husband and I watch. I think it's called Fair Play. And she recommended that my husband and I watch it. And I think if I gave you a quick synopsis, it's just at the core, like teaching men and women to share the mental load. Typically it's held by the women, and that's why we're grumpier, or that's why we feel so much weight in the household. And when the husband picks up the things that are maybe more on the physical side, like doing the actual taking out the trash, doing the actual things like that without like the woman having to prompt it with an "can you take out the trash?" It makes for a happier marriage because the woman and the man are working together, right? Anyway, my husband and I did watch that together, and ever since I feel like the mental load has been a little bit lighter. But my point is, if we're talking about exhaustion, I can start to feel physically exhausted just from the mental exhaustion, because mental exhaustion also can come with added anxiety, panic attacks. It can come with depression and cause all of those things too. So I think it's a good time to mention, if you're not regularly taking stock of your body, like some people would call it mindfulness, I call it being self-aware. You need to do that. You need to sit and take stock. How am I feeling? Where am I tired? Is my mind tired? Are my eyes tired? Is my body tired? Am I happy? Am I sad? So on and so forth. So what's the next layer, right? And I think it's emotional exhaustion. Personally, I think I'm finally coming out of a little bit of that. When we had some really rough stuff happen at our church recently, and my family being, my husband is a pastor at the church. There's just it hit. I think in some ways can impact us a little differently than other people, because it's kind of like, if a friend you had worked for like Coca-Cola, and then Coca-Cola had like some big scandal and huge recall, your friends and family may ask you about it for days and weeks and months following, because they know you work there. Well, it's sort of similar to that. It's that, we don't have the option of leaving work at work. And so through that came lots of big emotions: anger, grief, sadness, personally, depression, and every little thing. It wasn't just one here, one there, one, as the situation continued to unfold more and more, there was just like every little piece that was unfolding would cause a new emotional reaction. And that became so heavy that it fed into the mental exhaustion and the physical exhaustion. I felt so tired for the last 3 months. And it's because it was one of those situations where there's stuff you can do, but you don't really want to do anything. But it just, like, you can't stop thinking about it. And even though you can't stop thinking about it, then you want to do something about it. And so it's just this like cycle, because when you want to do something about it, the minute you think about doing something about it, it creates that emotional reaction, which leads to more and more of this cycle perpetuating itself. Emotional exhaustion for me also lives and breathes my children. I don't know if you've ever heard this, but somebody once told me that when you're raising your children, half of the battle is overcoming and realizing the trauma that you have from your own childhood in order to be a good parent to your children. So, for example, if you were raised in a household with a lot of yelling from your parents, you may find yourself doing an awful lot of yelling as a parent. And you also may find yourself not wanting to yell because as you're yelling, you're realizing the impact of the yelling on yourself. So you try to change how you're parenting to, maybe be 1% better than your parents, right? That's like the goal. And it's not even to say our parents did a bad job. It's to say that if we're not trying to grow and do better, then we're not honoring our parents, in my opinion. Anyway, that journey has been hard for me because growing up, I would not say, I did not believe that I had a lot of childhood trauma. Now, as I have gotten older and looked back at some of my situations and been in therapy for a while, I'm understanding what I have and I'm starting to see what I've got going on. But my point is, my kids, something that specifically triggers me is when my kids are just blatantly ignoring me or when they are being disrespectful. Because in the house I grew up in, those two things could lead to a spanking, could be a grounding. I'd get yelled at least, because that's just how my parents parented. Disrespect was not tolerated, and ignoring my parents was like first line of disrespect, right? So I'm like trying to work through that while I'm trying to parent my own children and find some patience that maybe my parents didn't have in that area. But in all of that, it requires so much of me to control my emotions. And that's not to say I'm pushing them down or putting them in a box. It's me trying to learn how to emotionally regulate myself while also trying to teach my kids to emotionally regulate themselves. They say more is caught than taught. So I'm learning that the more I keep my temper under control, the more my children's tempers stay under control. The more I show love when it's hard and when I don't want to and when I'm frustrated, and I show them patience even though, and they can see that I'm frustrated, but I show them grace and patience and calm in my demeanor. I notice them doing that with each other a whole lot more as well. So do with that information what you want, but know that that's going to add to your emotional exhaustion if you're sailing down the exhausted train like I am or have been. There's plenty of other things that can lead to the emotional exhaustion. If you spend any amount of time in the social media world or in the just public media like news channels and stuff, it's an emotional roller coaster, but 90% of what you're going to receive is fear mongering. You're going to receive a ton of things that you should be afraid of. And, John Deloney does a really great talk on this as part of the Financial Peace University kit. But essentially, he says even modern day marketing is about fear. If they can get you to be afraid of running out of even just running out of Kleenexes, you will buy more Kleenexes. And so in a world that we're completely and constantly surrounded by emotional triggers, how could we not be on edge a little bit emotionally? And if you're a female, which you probably are, because if you're not really part of my target audience, but hi and welcome. You also have your hormones are on their own track all month. So where as I think men have hormonal ups and downs as well. It's not as stark or as prominent as women's. So there's a time during the month where you have zero tolerance for anything. Just how we're made, and it's part of the life, and we've got to accept it, right? Oh, man. So physical exhaustion, mental exhaustion, emotional exhaustion. I don't really know what to say next other than I imagine spiritual exhaustion somewhere falls into this, right? Feeling like you've been praying and you've been praying and you've been praying and you feel like you're stagnant. Maybe you don't feel like you're learning anything new. Maybe you're not um, feeling active in your church or active in your relationships or whatever. Well, I would argue that if you're feeling spiritually exhausted, it's probably because you are not plugged into your relationship with God. And the reason I say that is because Jesus says in Matthew 11:28, "Come to me, all of you who are weary and carry heavy burdens, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you. Let me teach you, because I am humble and gentle at heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy to bear, and the burden I give you is light." If we feel spiritually exhausted, we are not plugged into and strongly in a relationship with Jesus. Because he says that his yoke is easy to bear and the burden he gives us is light. We have to make time for God. This world is going to try to tell us we don't have time. It's going to try to tell us that we don't want to. It's not fun. It's boring. But I've never had more fun or been more invested or excited about anything as when I am plugged in and engaging in my relationship with God. So where am I going with all this? I said at the beginning that exhaustion might just be a posture of your heart. Where I struggle is with my heart posture. I'm allowing myself to zero in on those first three parts of exhaustion, the mental, physical, and emotional. But those are all worldly things. Spiritually, if I am exhausted spiritually, it's because I've let those three things become more important than the one thing. I focused in on these three areas when the one area, if I just figured that out, would overshadow all of it. When I am fully plugged into my relationship with God and I'm fully reliant on Him, when I finally allow Him to have control and I lay it all down for Him, that's when all the other exhaustion goes away. I may need a break. I may need to rest. But there's a difference between being tired and needing to relax than being exhausted. Because when you hit that point of exhaustion, it's almost hard to pull yourself out of bed that day. It's almost hard to keep going. It's hard to have a conversation and not start bawling and unloading and unpacking all the things that you're going through. Hi, it's me. I don't want to feel like I'm preaching at you, because I have plenty of times put my Bible down and forgot about it. In fact, the first 27 years of my life, I never even hardly read it. I read it for school assignments and when I was told I had to. I never picked it up willingly, understanding that it was not only essential to my faith and understanding what I believe, but it's essential to understanding and hearing God's voice in and around and on my life. And if you are considering picking up your Bible and getting deeper with God this year, I want to encourage you. If you need support in that, please reach out to me. I would happily do a Bible study with you. I'll add you to the group that my friends are in, and we'll read together the Bible recap. If you want somebody to brainstorm ways to find a spot in your schedule to read your Bible or get closer with God, hit me up. I'm happy to work with you in whatever way it's helpful, but all I know is I believe that God has put me in this space for a reason, and I truly believe that it's to help other moms deepen their relationship with God so that they can become the parents that He wants them to be, and that they can become the minister of their family in making disciples with their husbands, or with, if they don't have, or if you're a single parent, ministering to your family and still making disciples. Regardless, I want to be a support in that, and I believe that God is calling me into that. So if you are looking for somebody to help you out with that, or if you just want to talk to somebody about what you've read in the Bible and just like bounce ideas off of each other, talk about what it means, I am absolutely here for that. I love to Bible study, and I will make time for you, because Lord knows that if you're asking me these questions or wanting to engage with me in that way, it probably means that God is making a space in your life to make time for me as well. And then we together making that time is making time for God. So, if you take nothing else away from this episode about being exhausted, I hope it's that you can go to God with any form of exhaustion you're feeling, but know that the more that you engage with Him and the more that you hand to Him, the more or the less exhausted you're going to feel. I often have to pray, God, I'm giving this to you today, and I'm sorry, I can't promise I won't pick it back up, but I know that you'll just laugh at me and walk alongside me, and then when I'm ready to let you carry it, you'll carry it for a while, because God knows that I am not yet in a place where I am able to regularly and completely let go of things. He knows I'm a control freak. He made me this way, right? But He knows I'm trying, and He knows you're trying too. So with that, I want to encourage you to keep looking for those miracles in the madness, and I hope to talk to you again next week. If you're looking for a place to find encouragement and support, this is it. Please reach out to me. My email is ashton@ashtonkever.com, and we can talk more about how to deepen your faith and grow your relationship with God. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Thanks for listening. Hey, I want to invite you to Miracles in the Madness community. It's a free private Facebook group for women and moms trying to walk out their Christian faith together. In this group, we support one another, we share scripture, pray together, and just generally have a community of support and growth and discipleship together. You don't have to do this alone, so come on and join us. There's a place for you too. Thank you for listening to Miracles in the Madness. I hope today's episode encouraged you and reminded you that even in the chaos, God is present and faithful. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing, leaving a review, and sharing it with a friend who might need a little encouragement today. This helps more listeners like you find this podcast. You can connect with me and find devotionals, resources, and faith-filled tools to support your walk with God at ashtonkever.com. You can also follow along on social media or join the community where we continue these conversations and walk this journey together. Remember, God is still writing your story. He's working in your everyday moments, and you are never alone in the beautiful chaos of motherhood.